Well, it's good to be back with everybody. It's been a little bit since we've been here, so it's nice to be home. Wish we lived closer. We'd be here more often, but so lots of stuff going on, and just I like to take a look at the landscape, in my little sphere of the world, and you know, what's the Father speaking to me? What's He saying to me? And all those kinds of things. And we've had several young couples get married here. We've got a wedding tomorrow. Um, and then even in my neck of the woods, there's a young couple getting married, and it's just, that's what young people do, right? And I just got to thinking, like, with all the marriages and weddings and all this fun stuff, right? People stepping out into new spheres of their life and, new avenues. But yet, there's a lot of distress in that. There's a lot of destruction in that. We have divorce, we have separations, we have all these relational issues. And I thought, even given my own past, my own relational issues, and for those of you who don't know, we are a blended family. So we both experienced divorce before we got married. And we had a lot of challenges to navigate. And so I thought I would share a few things that I've happened to learn along the way, and maybe spare some folks some difficult times, because it's not easy out there, especially when you're just getting started. So the title for today's message: You Are Not My Enemy. We are going to talk about relationships and marriage. That's where we're going today. So buckle up. I believe that there is a spiritual force that influences, or I should say, comes against modern marriage. I think it was always there, but this is our generation, right? So we're going to call everything modern. I think it's always been there. There's always been this external pressure on relationships. And it seems to me that this has been increasing as we get closer and closer to Yeshua's return. As we get closer to the end of days, it seems like it's getting harder. You look at the dating landscape, it's terrible. Like, you can't even go up to somebody of the opposite sex and talk to them anymore, right? They say, oh, you're weird, or they got all these names and labels, and you're creepy, and you can't do that. Can't even talk to anybody. How is anybody supposed to get together? Then you go online, and there's all these other rules and just all this stuff that you have to deal with just to meet somebody. It's difficult. And then if you get past that and actually walk down an aisle somewhere, now you got all kind of other challenges. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just scrap the whole thing and start over. And that's got a whole host of challenges too. But we're going to identify, we're going to take a 10,000-foot view, kind of what's going on in the world. Then we're going to identify this spiritual force, and we're going to see how that force plays out in relationships, and then we're going to see what we can do about it. How can we counter that influence? So that's where I'm going to try to go today. Hopefully I can get there. So I've got more material than what I have time for, so we're going to do our best and move quickly. All right. Symptoms: breakdown in modern relationships. I believe if I had to put an overarching title on what's going on with the breakdown of modern relationships, I would say it's idolatry. And I don't say a specific idol like we're giving ourselves to something. We're the idol. We're worshiping ourselves. We have a culture that says you need to worship yourself. And this gets transported right into our marriages, our relationships. It's self-centeredness, really. You see, when we enter into a relationship, by and large, we focus on what we can get from the other person. What can I get from my spouse? Love is reduced to a transaction. Right? If you perform to my expectations, I will love you. And there's no in between, there's no gray area, there's no movement. You either perform and get love, or you don't perform and you don't get love. Because you're not meeting my needs. You always hear this term, what do they bring to the table? What do they bring to the table? Right? Is what the contribution you're bringing to the relationship, is that good enough to meet my needs? And as long as you're doing that, it's fine. Everybody's happy. But the minute something happens and you can't do that anymore, you can't perform to that level of expectation, now we've got stress and strife in the relationship. It's not good. Continual performance. Another breakdown is what I call the pursuit of lazy happiness. Why do I say lazy happiness? The expectation that the relationship will always be satisfying. So from that minute we walk down the aisle and we tie that knot, we say our vows, and we're rushing off to the honeymoon, I'm going to be happy forever. Right? It's all rainbows and butterflies for every other day since. Yes, these married couples are laughing at me. They know. That's the expectation. Regardless of shifting emotions, seasons of life, and external influences, your job is to make me happy. I have to be happy all the time. And if I'm not happy, it's probably your fault. See, we place the responsibility of personal happiness upon the other party. We put them in a position they were never designed to be in. The primary purpose of the relationship becomes personal fulfillment. I'm going to bring somebody into my life because they can make me happy, they can fulfill me, right? They can do all these things for me. And whatever I can do for them is secondary in my mind. And then the spouse is saying the same thing. I'm going to bring him into my life because he's doing all these things for me. And you got two self-centered people. And it only works when A and B perform to the expectations of the other. And the minute that breaks down, the relationship's in trouble. There's a contractual mindset. The relationship is based on a give and take exchange, which means it's eligible to be dissolved if one or both parties do not meet expectations. You didn't make me happy this month? I think it's time to start shopping. You didn't meet my expectations? I didn't think it was going to play out like this. I think we need to just scrap the whole thing and start over with somebody else. That's what our world does. You see, a contractual mindset's a rejection of the covenant standard of marriage as an enduring, binding institution which is sacrificially upheld. See, it's not about what can I get, it's what can I give. If you have two people in a relationship that are trying to outgive each other, that's going to work. That's going to last. We're going to come back to this point. But we need to understand that marriage is a sacred institution. It's designed primarily for our holiness, not our happiness. That statement is not popular because the reason most relationships start in this day and age are for romantic happiness. I want to find somebody that can make me happy. And it's going to be rainbows and butterflies every day thereafter. That's not the purpose of marriage. Now, Brother Luther, are you saying we shouldn't be happy in marriage? No, I would not say that because that's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be good for you. What I'm saying is happiness, romantic happiness, is not the purpose or the foundation of your marriage. Holiness is. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Hardness of heart. Two more symptoms. A response to unmet expectations, right? We just talked about how it's performative. What happens when they don't perform? Well, I respond, right? A lot of our expectations are based on unrealistic desires. There's an unwillingness, as the sages put it, an unwillingness to commit to Leah after the excitement of Rachel has waned. Right? Jacob, he worked extra. He worked 7 years for Rachel. He got Leah. And then he's, man, Rachel's fine, man. I'll work extra. I'll put in the extra time because that's what I want. But what happened with Leah? She bore all the children, right? She was with them day in, day out, stable, solid, steady, right there. When my desires are not being met, instead of reorienting those desires, I attempt to bend my external world to suit my needs. So, how does this play out? I'm the husband, married, tell my wife, you're not meeting my expectations. So you better shape up or ship out because I'm not going to change. I'm not going to temper my expectations because you're pregnant, because you're sick, because life threw us a curveball and we had to adjust things. No, you get it together. That's the message. And it doesn't play out very well. Hardness of heart is a stubborn refusal to abandon a false ideal for the sake of the union. It can lead to manipulative and abusive behaviors towards the spouse. And then the relationship is written off and dissolved. She couldn't get it together, man. She got kicked to the curb. And then you'll go find somebody else, you'll get married, and you'll repeat that same pattern over and over and over until you're in your third, fourth, fifth marriage. And you just wonder why none of these women can get it together. Maybe you're the problem. And then we have contempt. This is the stage right before the relationship is terminated. It's contempt. A lot of times when a couple gets to this point, it's really hard to recover from. Hardness of heart, you might be able to do something. Contempt, that's tough. The responsibility for personal happiness is placed solely on the spouse. We talked about that. If the spouse does not perform to expectations, the relationship feels one-sided, and resentment builds with each perceived failure. He just never does anything right. I told him over and over and over again, and he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't respect me. He doesn't do it the way it's got to be done. He must not love me. The relational atmosphere becomes toxic. There's lack of appreciation. Anything he does that's good, it pales in comparison to all of his perceived failures. He couldn't do enough good things to salvage the relationship. lack of respect. It's the devaluing of the partner as a whole. There's just no respect there. This is some of the things. This is the 10,000-foot view we were talking about. This is what's going on in this world. These are some of the challenges that people face day in, day out. And it doesn't matter what your religious background is, your socioeconomic background, all these things can come into play. I like to believe that as people of faith, we shouldn't have to deal with very much of this. But some of it is a reality. Okay, the spiritual root. What is this ambiguous spiritual force that I'm talking about? Let's go to Genesis 3:16. This is going to take us all the way back into the garden. All right, Adam and Eve. And we're going to see what's going on here. So we know that there was the fall, right? Mankind fell away from Father's design and will for their lives. And this was the pronouncement. Verse 16, to the woman he said, I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth. You will bring forth children in pain. Your desire will be towards your husband, but he will rule over you. Okay, verse 16, one verse, right? There's been whole books on submission based off this one verse. Super popular topic, I'm sure. But let's break it down. Genesis 3:16. The word desire. See, a lot of times if we don't kind of dig a little bit, we get a misrepresentative idea of what this word's talking about. The word desire is teshuka. It's the impulse to control. It references sin's desire for Cain. It seeks to subdue you, to overpower you. And the idea, there's actually three ideas we'll talk about with this word, is the woman's desire is a predatory longing to dominate her husband. That doesn't sound good, but that's part of the curse. Another idea for desire is to turn away. The woman turns to her husband to fulfill her ultimate needs. That sounds good. But she does it in such a way that it puts the man in an inappropriate position in place of the father. Right? She's looking at him like, you're my everything. You're my protector, my provider. You're there to make me happy. You're there to meet all of my emotional needs in any given moment. You're like God to me, and you better perform. Another idea is that desire is vulnerability through devotion, right? She loves him. She desires him. More of a romantic sense. It's an emotional bond that what should be a blessing becomes a source of vulnerability that is exploited by the man. I see she loves me. I'm going to use that to my advantage. Three ideas behind this word desire. The next word, rule. He shall rule over you. That's mashal. Now remember, the curse pronouncement here, that is descriptive, not prescriptive. Very important. It's not the father saying, this is how relationships are going to be from here forward. This is a description of life outside of the father's will. A lot of people have gotten that wrong. And they suggest this is how relationships are supposed to be. Mashal, descriptive. It's the man's natural role will devolve from servant leadership to self-centered dominance. I will rule over you. I will exert my force to bend you to my will. There's a noun from this word, it's moshel instead of mashal, which means a dictator ruling by force. The relationship has shifted towards a power struggle. The man uses his strength to suppress the woman's perceived desire for control. You're going to try to control me? Let's go. Right? Now we're going to fight. I'm going to show you how strong I am. You see, the curse pronouncement reveals the consequence of the fall. This was never the Father's design for men and women. This was never his design for marriage. So the curse is a spiritual force that aggravates relational tensions of fallen mankind. The curse is a design that seeks to distort Yah's image, which is found in marital unity and relational harmony between the genders. We are not meant to fight each other. You are not my enemy. All right. How does this curse play out? How does it play out? The spiritual opposition in modern relationships directly targets unity, purity, and longevity. It causes couples to fight one another instead of dealing with the outside forces that are affecting the relationship. We've got external stresses that we're dealing with in a relationship context, and instead of addressing those issues, we're going to fight each other because we're off. We don't understand what's going on. She's just trying to dominate me, and he's just trying to dominate her. And we'll see who wins. So some of the common manifestations of this spiritual force, this spiritual attack: constant conflict. We have unmet needs, which are usually based on unwarranted expectations. I'm expecting my partner to keep me happy, to be the sole source of my happiness, and they're not living up to that challenge. Unmet expectations. So now I'm manifesting, frustration and anger. The Gottmans, if you're familiar with them, if you look at any relationship stuff, they're very popular. They talk about poor communication. And they call it the four horsemen, which is criticism, attacking your partner's character. You're not even capable of loving me. If you really loved me, you would do what I asked you to do. But because you're not capable of it, I guess I'm going to temper my expectations. There's defensiveness, making excuses. Well, if you wouldn't yell at me all the time, maybe I could actually get something done around here. You're always making me feel bad. There's stonewalling. I'm telling on myself here, this is where I live. When I have relationship conflict with me and my wife, I stonewall. I'm out. You withdraw or refuse to engage. I'm going to cut you off until you learn your lesson. You can imagine how awesome that makes her feel. And then there's contempt. We talked about that. Disrespectful behavior. I don't like you anymore. Not only do I not love you, I would never say that, because that's an admission. So I can't say that. So I'm just going to treat you as if I do not like you anymore, because I don't. You tricked me into this relationship, and you're not meeting my needs. We have power struggles, conflicts over control and relationship roles. We get out of balance gender roles and operating outside of one's capacity. A lot of times we expect our partners to do something they were never designed to do. And then we can get into distrust. We have lust and comparison. We see this all over social media, right? We have pornography and adult content all over the place. We compare our spouse to that. You don't look like they do. You don't do the things they do. That creates a question in your partner's mind. Will my partner leave me for somebody else because I'm not performing to some standard that they have? Some worldly standard, mind you? Are they going to leave me emotionally, physically? Are they going to step out of the relationship with somebody else? We have cohabitation. I did this in my first marriage. 8 years lived with a girl. Was not serving the Lord, obviously. But I was like, we don't need to get married. It's just a piece of paper. Really, what I was telling her is that I've got the back door open in case I need to make a quick exit. You're not tying me down. Because the minute you stop performing, I'm out that door. Pack my trash and I'm gone. You're enjoying the benefits of the relationship without offering full commitment. Relationships and marriages do not work if we are not offering full commitment to our partners, to our spouse. Lying spirits. We can't talk about relationships without mentioning social media. This is a fundamental thing in our generation. You know, people like myself, I didn't have really access to a computer till I was in high school. Called it keyboarding class. 1 hour a day, I got to play with a computer before I graduated high school. Now we've got cell phones and tablets and laptops and all kinds of stuff, and you've got a screen. Like, where can you go and you don't have a screen? It's just everywhere. It's pervasive. And it's a reality we have to deal with. Well, it presents some information to us, like false representation, right? We're guilty of this. You have Facebook? You don't put the days that you're fighting with your spouse and that the horrible things that you said to her in the kitchen, you don't post that on Facebook. It's all smiles and we love each other and look how much fun we're having, hashtag blessed, right? Even though we were just throwing shoes at each other in the other room. Got to make it look good for Facebook, social media. We project this perfect, glamorous life while we hide our personal struggles and faults. We make ourselves seem more impressive and desirable than we are in reality. We have a spirit of deception, which is a little more than just false representation, right? We're not just trying to make ourselves look good. We're outright fabricating things. We're creating an entirely fake identity to engage in romantic relationships or intimate interaction, which usually leads to predatory behavior. I'm going to make myself look so good that all those ladies are going to be trying to jump into my DMs. Then we have the spirit of stalking. Right, I'm going to watch this person. I'm going to follow this person. I'm going to like every single thing they post. And I'll get their attention. We intensely monitor either a prospective partner or a partner's social media And the interesting thing about that is that that breeds insecurity and mistrust in us. Right? You're following her Facebook and she posts a picture on a date with somebody else. Uh-oh. Constant and consistent exposure to these spirits, I call them, logically leads to an erosion of trust, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy and lack of true connection. My generation, if you wanted to meet a girl, you actually had to physically walk up to her and talk to her or pass her a note in class, right? That was our equivalent of social media. You could write it on a note and have your buddy pass it to her. Maybe we ought to bring that back. It's just different now. So how do we deal with all this stuff? I mean, man, this is a lot. Modern responses. Well, each gender has responded accordingly. They've responded to all these inputs. So we're going to talk about feminism, and we're going to talk about what's known as the manosphere, which is not really new. My generation, we used to call it being macho. For those of you who are my age will understand what I'm talking about. But since I'm a gentleman, ladies first, we're going to talk about feminism. So let's define feminism. It's the belief in and advocacy of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes, expressed through organized activity on behalf of women's rights. How it plays out is a rejection of the male role of leadership, provision, and protection. I don't need a man because I can do everything a man can do. Their foundational ideals: equality of the sexes. Men and women should be considered equal across varying social structures. That doesn't sound terrible. Like, everybody likes equality, right? Nobody wants to discriminate. It's opposition to gender-based discrimination. Bodily autonomy, emphasizing a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, which extends to the decisions concerning the unborn. And protection from abuse and exploitation. Some of those things we could get behind, right? We don't want to see women exploited. We don't want to see women discriminated against. But there's some problems here. There's some biblical conflicts with this ideology. There's a rejection of distinctions between genders. See, we have to remember, biblically, men and women are of equal value, but we have different roles. We are created differently for different functions. Man's role to lead, the woman's role to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Just kidding. I'm just teasing. It was a joke. Don't stone me. See, feminism would say, I have autonomy. I have radical autonomy over and above submission to God. Not only am I not going to submit to God, I'm not going to submit to my husband either. I'm not submitting to anybody. 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20. You are not your own. You are bought with a price. You don't belong to yourself. Notice that verse is not gendered. 1 Corinthians 7:4. Your bodies belong to one another. I don't get to do whatever I want to do with my body. Because if I could, I would never go to a doctor again. But my wife won't let me do that. There is a hostility towards family roles. They are seen as inherently oppressive. My joke about being in the kitchen, right? You can't say that. That's inappropriate. Sexual ethics conflict with biblical standards. Indecency and promiscuity are on the rise, and it's labeled as women's empowerment. I don't want to go too far down that road. You guys know what I'm talking about. Then there's bitterness, resentment, the warfare between the sexes. And this is a big issue. It counters scriptural ideals of mutual honor, sacrificial love, and unity. See, the problem with feminism is that you hold to that ideology and you end up alone. I'm always teasing my daughters. I say, sometimes they'll say stuff or make statements. I'll be like, better watch out. You might end up being a cat lady. Like, you're going to drive men off with some of that thinking. I'm just teasing them most of the time, but that's the problem you see. You see all these women, they're holding to these feminist ideals and they're just alone. That's a manifestation of a spiritual force that is coming against you. It doesn't want to see you unified. It doesn't want to see you with somebody in a beautiful union that reflects his design. Men. All right, ladies. Men are going to get theirs. The manosphere, the new term. Like I said, we used to call it macho. It is the modern embodiment of the Little Rascals He-Man Woman Haters Club. Some of you might remember that. And what was the number one rule of the He-Man Woman Haters Club? Don't fall in love. This is this modern interpretation. So the manosphere, defined, is a collection of online social, mostly, communities that promotes aggressive masculinity, misogyny, which is contempt for women, and opposition to feminism. It frames men as societal victims and advocates for male supremacy. It promotes autonomy. It promotes selfishness and manipulation or even abuse of women. It says, I'm a man, and I need to be all about my business. I need to be about personal development. I need to get certain things in order to make sure I'm the best male I can be. And then maybe I'll pull a woman into my life at that point, once I've achieved a certain status. And since I'm a man and I have certain needs and desires as it relates to the opposite sex, I can just use a few ladies on my way up to the top before I pull that right one in. It's not a big deal, right? Foundational ideals. Male autonomy, prioritizing well-being, freedom, and personal development. These things sound great. Like, you should want to take care of yourself. You should be developing yourself. But they hijack that message. And the end result is usually abuse women and isolate yourself in the name of personal development. There's a distrust of modern marriage, which is a reaction to a lot of the legal bias that we have in the world, divorce and custody and financial matters. A lot of times men get held the short end of the stick in these arenas. That's a reality. It's not a justification. Criticism of modern feminism. It views feminism as female privilege or anti-male ideology. And it's the avoidance of long-term commitment by and large. It is rejection of the societal expectations of self-sacrifice for society. That's one we don't talk about very often anymore. What are you doing for your community and the world at large? How are you making a positive contribution? Relationships and institutions are seen as negative. Some biblical conflicts. It's a withdrawal from covenant responsibility, leadership, marriage, service, and sacrifice. This is what men are designed to do. We reject all that. I'm going to focus on me because I'm worth it. Cynicism and distrust towards women, generalizing women as manipulative or dangerous, just like the curse said they would be. Those darn women. We would not be in this mess if they never touched that tree. It's all their fault. Self-centered independence, where we have a biblical standard of interdependence, first with our God and then with our spouse. What? I'm supposed to depend on her? I'm supposed to pull her into my life and lean on her appropriately because she can provide me something that I can't provide for myself? And it was the Father's will to give her to me? These are scandalous concepts. Pride and resentment cultivates anger, superiority, contempt, and a grievance identity. I'm always the victim. I'm always getting the short end of the stick from those darn women. And my personal worth is not found in my relationship with the Father and what He's called me to do. My personal worth is found in my status, or what's known as my sexual marketplace desirability. The more notches I can put on my belt, the higher status I am. And then other guys will look, oh, look at that guy, I would be just like him. Because that's what we're going for, right? That's the ideal. It's not good. Two genders, two opposing ideologies, and they're supposed to come together and make a functioning relationship with that? It's nonsense. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work because it's not His standard. It's not His ideology. Last I checked, His ideology was two people, male and female, in the garden, unified with a common purpose. Marriage is supposed to be a picture of that. So what do we do? How do we fight this? What countermeasures can we take? Well, there's some, I like to call it a third scriptural response. And as people of faith, this is where we need to be. We have to have a foundational understanding of relationships, specifically marriage. See, Genesis 3:16 is prescriptive. It's prescribing the effects of the curse on mankind. It's prescribing the effects of the fall. This is what's going to happen because you stepped out of my will. It's not a description of how things are supposed to be. If anything, it's a description of how things are not supposed to be. The pronouncement was a description of reality for those outside or separated from the divine will, not a prescription of gender behavior for all time. Your spouse is not supposed to be trying to rule over you. You are not supposed to be dominating her. That's not the picture we are painted. Male dominion, authoritarianism, and abuse are counter to Yah's design for man. We are supposed to sacrifice on her behalf. Female manipulation and contempt are counter to a woman's inherent God-created nature. They are nurturers, by and large. There's a reason men don't have babies, right? The Father could have made us talking about reproduction, he could have made a whole number of things. Like we could have laid eggs or something, right? Look at nature. There's all different ways to get this done. But he says, no, I'm going to have a woman carry life inside her, to take 9 months to nurture that, to grow it, to care for it. And then once it's out, guess what? You're caring for that sucker a lot longer than that. They're nurturers. It's in their nature. Just as it's in our nature, man's nature, to protect and provide. Right? Genesis 2:18. Let me read this passage here. Find it in my notes. Genesis 2:18. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper corresponding to him." Men and women were created equally in Yah's image. They were equal in honor, dignity, and value. They were uniquely equipped for differing roles. See, the world would tell you that one is better than the other. And then it's just a matter of who do you listen to. Father says they're both created in my image. They're created a little differently for different roles. It's interesting. The Father's declaration was, man alone is not good. He requires a helper. Man alone was insufficient to complete his calling. He required a synergistic helper. The word helper is ezer, which means divine strength. The same word used there when talking about divine strength. He attributes that to the woman. That's interesting. It says a strong ally. And ezer kenegdo, if I'm saying that correctly, a helper corresponding to him. Example, the same character as he has, is a woman who provides the necessary strength to assist the man, a counterpart that balances and completes an ally. Equal value, different function. See, the Father made man. He says, I've got a job for you. You're going to have dominion. And then he looked at man and said, bro, I don't think don't quite got what it takes. You need some help, man. So he didn't make another Adam, right? There weren't two Adams in the garden. He says, look, you're going to take a nap. We're going to do a little surgery. And when you wake up, I got a big surprise. He made a creature, human, that had different characteristics. She looked different. Her body was different. And she had a different function. And he's like, look, together, y'all can do it. Two sides of one coin. Rashi has this, I call it the mirror concept, but he kind of talks about this in some other related passages in his commentary. And it says, if he is worthy, she shall be a help to him. If he is unworthy, she shall be opposed to him to fight him. What does that mean? Her help is to assist and support through means of questioning, confronting, reflecting, and providing limits. What kind of help is that? She's supposed to be there to tell me I can do whatever I want to do. Question me. I'm the man. No, what is her role? To provide limits. I don't think you should jump off cliffs. I don't think that's a good idea. Or maybe you shouldn't do this thing or that thing because, she has a different perspective. She can see trouble where maybe he can't. It's interesting because I've talked to this before with a gentleman in some coaching, and we were talking about, relationship stuff. And I was telling him, I said, your wife is like a mirror. She really is. Relationship-wise, a woman is like a mirror. She will reflect back to you the reality of the relationship. She will respond to how her needs are being met and reflect equivalent treatment. So no, your wife is not crazy. Probably has something to do with what you're putting in front of her and what she's reflecting back to you. See, if I'm putting in front of her lack of safety, she's going to reflect withdrawal of physical and emotional intimacy. If she doesn't feel safe with you, there's no place there for intimacy. You can't be intimate with a tyrant, somebody who's trying to dominate you and take advantage of you. Can't expose yourself to that. If her needs are not being met, at some point she's going to start to reflect resentment and hostility. This is not what you promised me when you walked me down this aisle. The old saying, whatever you do to win them, that's what you do to keep them. So watch yourself when you're dating, when you're in that courting phase. Because both of you are setting the standards of expectation for your relationship. What do you mean you don't want to cook anymore? That's why I even started talking to you. Uh-oh. What do you mean you don't want to go to work today? Thought you were going to provide for me. All right, where are we at? The most effective countermeasure to the negative spiritual forces is to embrace a more biblical view of marriage. There's this quote by Gary Thomas in his book, Sacred Marriage, which it's a Christian book, but it's really good. It's really good. It says, first is the issue of separation. Marriage is an exclusive relationship for the purpose of holiness. The Father designed marriage to make us holy more than to make us happy. As somebody who has gone through divorce and remarried and faced all kinds of challenges, because now you've got baggage from old relationships that you're bringing into this new one, whether you like it or not, it's there. You have to deal with it. This mindset right here if you're newly married, if you're blended, this will save your marriage right here. This one thought that marriage is for holiness over and above happiness. Now, do I want you to be unhappy in a relationship? No, I don't. That's not healthy. That's not good. But happiness is not the foundation that your marriage is built on. Holiness is. Because marriage is a picture of the Father, of spiritual unity. You keep this mindset, and when you remind yourself that I'm in this relationship because God has sent this person in my life to help keep me holy, so I'm not running around doing things I shouldn't be doing. You remind yourself of that. And then there's those times when you're so spitting mad at that woman that you can't stand the sight of her. You won't run out that door or do something dumb. We all get angry. We all get upset with each other. That's temporary. And our culture would excuse anybody. Oh, they're not making you happy? Psh, walk. And nobody's even going to bat an eye anymore. It used to be if you were a divorced person, that was kind of scandalous. Like, oh, what happened there? Now it's like, what is that, number 3, number 4? Does it matter? It's sad. You keep this idea that one of the purposes for marriage is my holiness, so I can stand rightly before a holy God. You will save yourself from grief and pain. You will spare your children from having to suffer divorce and relationship discord. But you got to think right about it. See, marriage is an environment that calls us to confront selfishness, to grow in service, obedience, and character. Romantic happiness is a byproduct of that environment, not its foundation. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be happy in your marriage. You absolutely should be, right? Rejoice in the wife of your youth. But happiness is not the end goal. Happiness is what happens when you've got everything else right. You know, romantic happiness, if that was the standard, I would need a new relationship, a new marriage, probably about every 3 to 4 years. Right? First year of marriage, it's honeymoon, 12 months, easy. Right? Then you get into a routine of stuff and okay, it's mostly good, no problems. Third year, like, I don't know, starting to see some red flags in that one. The fourth year, I can't even stand there anymore. Start over. That's what we do, right? Good for a couple of years, and once that excitement wears off, there's a one flesh ideal. That's the Father's will for us. The Hebraic ideal of one flesh is found in Genesis 2:23 and 24. And I like the ASV, American Standard Version. It says, "And the man said, 'This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh.'" Where am I at here? Okay. Running low on time, but we're almost done. All right. 3 key words from this passage that'll give us this one flesh picture. Right after the creation account of Eve, we see Yah's design for marriage, right? He made Adam, gave him Eve. This is the design. This is what the purpose is. We've got three key words: cleave, one, and flesh. Let's look at this. Cleave, and this is a $5 word here. It's an auto-antonym. What does that mean? It has two contradictory meanings. Cleave means to split or sever, or it means to strongly attach, which is really interesting because this goes back to Rashi's mirror statement. If he's worthy, she'll help attach. If he's unworthy, she'll be opposed to him, sever. Interesting. Under God's design, we have intimate connection. Under the curse, we have isolation and opposition. This is what you see with feminism and this manosphere stuff, right? It all sounds good on the surface, but the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the closer you end up being alone. And then you're just one of these old guys with a YouTube channel talking about how horrible women are. And it says one. They shall be one flesh, one echad. Two distinct individuals become unified in purpose and vision. When I talk about people's calling, right, what the Father has you here to do, I always talk about synergistic partnership. Marriage is just that, synergistic, right? It's not basic math, 1 + 1 = 2. It's no, one man and one woman equal 1,000, right? It's multiplied. Two of you together are going to be way greater than any one of you separately. That's by the Father's design. You see, you become a physical mirror of the oneness of God, echad. And then flesh, basar. That carries the connotation of the whole human experience. The day-to-day existence, the couple functions as a single interdependent unit. It's a picture of unity, right? You two are walking through life together. You're holding each other's hand. You're supporting one another. And when things come against you, to divide you, to stress you out, to pull you in different directions, you just hold on that much tighter because you're one flesh. You are no longer two individuals. That's what the whole marital ceremony represents. The two shall become one. Your bodies don't belong to you anymore. Your body belongs to your spouse. You're there to support one another, mutually, sacrificially. And hopefully, before you got married, you discovered you have a common purpose and vision to pursue. Because it's going to be real hard if you both have different visions that are going in different directions. The Father put you here to accomplish something, and He gave you a helper. What has He called you to do? And He sent you the perfect gift to do that. She just happens to have more hair than you do, most times. So, interesting side note, the word basar in Turkish means success. I thought that was kind of cool. One flesh. When you become one flesh, that's the pathway to success. Living sacrificially. Again, I can't hammer this enough. Holiness over personal happiness is the highest ideal. Far too often, people get into involvements in relationships and marriages just to try to make each other happy. That's got a time limit. It's got an expiration date on it. Because I guess, I'll tell you what, there's going to be seasons in life where, guess what? Your spouse is not going to make you happy. Quite the opposite. Your prayers might begin like, Lord, why did you send that woman to me? Not my wife, that woman, right? And she might be praying the same thing, like, why did you give me that man? But emotions and anger, all that stuff's temporary. You're playing the long game of holiness before a holy God. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. All right? Don't get too mad at your wife because guess what? She's a part of you. And she reflects who you are. If you are ever mad at your wife, your spouse, right? Husband, wife, whatever, don't tell your friends. Whenever you speak to your buddies or your girlfriends, your spouse is the best thing ever all the time. All the time. Because if you speak against them to your friends, you're tearing yourself down, for one, and you're diminishing her in their eyes. That's dishonorable. You don't do that to the one who's that close and intimately connected with you. We must learn to appreciate one another despite their faults and shortcomings, because we all have faults and shortcomings. The question you need to ask yourself, or ask your spouse rather, is can you love me when I'm being a jerk? Because I'm going to be a jerk. There's going to be times in our relationship, in the course of our marriage, after all these years, I'm going to be a jerk, probably more than once. Can you love me? Can you still love me? Will you do the same for them when they're falling short? We must offer respect and foster a sense of security, even in the face of disagreement and hurt. You hurt me. You hurt my feelings. You were being a jerk to me. But you know what? I still love you and I'm still committed to this relationship because my feelings will change. We have to understand that in a marriage relationship, my needs may not always be gratified. What? I don't know if I even want to be married now. You telling me my needs won't always be met? If there's going to be times that I'm going to want something and she's going to be like, no, I'm not doing that. We're not going there. We're not doing this thing. I'm not catering to your will and desires. Oh, I'm offended. No, that's a two-way street. Get over yourself. Stay committed to the marriage because he ordained it and move on with life because that's your helpmeet. That's your partner. That's your husband. We have to remember that two people living sacrificially to meet another's needs set themselves on the path to Akkad oneness. If I'm sacrificing for you and you're sacrificing for me, then there's not going to be a whole lot of ripples in that relationship. And when there are, we're stable enough, strong enough, and built on the right foundation, we'll take it in stride. So, in closing, your spouse is not your enemy, quite the opposite. We have to stop treating each other, this relational dynamic we have, that they're our enemy. They're just different. Men and women are different. They think different. They do different things. But one has something the other doesn't have. And when you put them together, it's awesome. Your spouse is not your enemy. The real battle is against selfishness, pride, and resentment and division that seek to destroy covenant. Marriage is not designed to make us happy, but to make us holy. And if we follow that logic, happiness will just be a byproduct of that. So when a husband and wife choose covenant over convenience, holiness over happiness, and sacrifice over self-interest, they move towards the Father's design for oneness. So I hope that has encouraged some of you today, some of us who have been married for 18 years, and those who are working on their first year. It's God's design for you to be together. He put you in each other's path for a purpose, and that purpose is not to fight each other. And that's all I have. So, Shabbat Shalom.